If you love dark, slow-burn single dad romances built on grief, restraint, and the kind of intimacy that forms when two wounded people are forced too close for too long, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. Tonight's story is: he guarded a woman in hiding. The single dad wasn't ready for what she saw in him. The call comes just before dusk. Jonah Mercer is 43, standing on the narrow porch of a secluded cabin with a cup of coffee gone cold in his hands, watching the trees sway like they're whispering secrets to one another. The air smells like pine and damp earth, quiet enough that it almost hurts. He hasn't lived anywhere permanently in years. Not since the accident. Not since the title single dad became something hollow, still true, but with nowhere to land. When his phone rings, he already knows it won't be good news. "You're the only one I trust for this," the voice says. Low. Urgent. Familiar. Off-grid. No questions. 2 weeks, maybe longer. Jonah closes his eyes. "What's the job?" he asks. "Protective detail." One client. Female. High risk. Jonah exhales slowly. He hasn't done private protection since he left the city, since he stopped believing he could keep anyone safe. "I don't take open-ended work anymore." "She's already in the safe house," the voice replies. "And she asked for someone older. Someone quiet." That detail settles heavier than it should. Against his better judgment, Jonah agrees. The cabin sits deep in the hills, miles from the nearest town. No neighbors. No paved roads. No cell signal unless you stand in exactly the right place near the back window and hold the phone just right. Jonah arrives just after nightfall. He checks the perimeter, tests the locks, memorizes exits, counts windows, measures silence. Then he knocks. The woman who opens the door is white, early 30s, barefoot, wrapped in an oversized sweater like it's armor. Her hair is pulled back hastily, strands loose around her face. Her eyes lift to his with something like resignation. "You're the guard," she says. "Jonah," he replies. "You're safe here." She nods once. "I'm Lena." That's all she offers. The rules are clear. No outside contact. No leaving the property. Minimal movement. Jonah sleeps in the room closest to the door, keeps a weapon within reach, listens through the night for sounds that don't belong. Lena stays quiet. Too quiet. She moves carefully, like every step might give her away. She avoids windows, keeps her voice low, flinches at sudden noises, then straightens like she's embarrassed by it. Jonah notices everything. He tells himself it's just the job. The days stretch long and slow. They eat meals together because there's nowhere else to go. Conversation starts with logistics, schedules, exits, procedures, but gradually slips into something softer. She asks him where he learned to be so calm. Jonah answers honestly. "After you lose the worst thing once, everything else feels survivable." She doesn't ask what he means. Not yet. At night, the cabin feels too big for only 2 people. Wind rattles the windows. Floorboards creak. Jonah stays awake longer than necessary, listening, guarding. One night, he finds Lena sitting on the hallway floor, back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. "I couldn't sleep," she says quickly. He sits a few feet away. Not touching. "You don't have to explain." That's when she looks at him. Not afraid, not guarded. Just tired. "You don't talk about your life," she says. "There's not much to say." That's never true. The truth comes out in fragments over the next few days. Lena isn't hiding from criminals. She's hiding from power. An influential man who decided she belonged to him. When she refused, he made her life smaller. Dangerous. Unlivable. "I disappeared," she says quietly one night. And he didn't like that. Jonah listens, jaw tight. Anger controlled but sharp. "No one owns you," he says. She laughs bitterly. He thinks he does. The attraction begins where safety settles. In the way Jonah stands a little closer without realizing it. In the way Lena relaxes when she hears his footsteps. In the way silence between them stops feeling empty. She starts leaving her mug in the same spot every morning. Jonah starts checking the locks twice before bed. Not because protocol demands it, but because the thought of her sleeping unprotected twists something sharp in his chest. One evening, Lena surprises him by cooking dinner. It's simple, quiet, Nothing impressive. But the act itself feels intimate, like reclaiming something stolen. You didn't have to, Jonah says. I wanted to, she replies. It helps me feel normal. The word lands hard. Later, they sit on opposite ends of the couch. The television hums ignored. At some point, Lena shifts closer. Not touching, just enough to feel Jonah's warmth. He doesn't move away. That night, Jonah dreams again. Not of sirens. Not of loss. But of standing watch while someone sleeps peacefully behind him. The realization terrifies him. Carrying this deeply feels dangerous. When the threat escalates, Jonah begins pulling away. More distance. Fewer conversations. Less eye contact. It isn't just strategy, it's fear. He knows what attachment costs. He's paid it once already. One night, Lena finally says it. You're pushing me away. I can't lose you, Jonah answers without thinking. The truth hangs heavy between them. You don't have to protect me from yourself, she says softly. I choose this. The scare comes suddenly. A car passes too slowly on the dirt road. Headlights cut through the trees. Lena panics. Jonah moves instantly, locking doors, checking angles, anchoring her with his presence. When it's over, Lena collapses against him, shaking. I can't keep running, she sobs. You don't have to, Jonah says. Not alone. The kiss happens then. Slow. Careful. Full of permission and fear. When they pull apart, both of them are breathing hard. That can't happen again, Jonah says. I know, Lena replies. They both know they're lying. The danger peaks days later. A warning gets through. The man looking for her is close. Jonah doesn't sleep. Doesn't relax. Keeps distance again. Terrified intimacy will make him careless. When the confrontation finally comes, it's swift and controlled. Jonah handles it with precision and clarity he hasn't felt in years. The threat is neutralized. After the cabin feels too quiet, too empty, Lena sits at the table, hands wrapped around a mug. What happens now? Jonah exhales slowly. I don't know how to go back to being alone. She stands, steps into his space. Then don't. They don't rush. They talk. Set boundaries. Choose deliberately. Weeks later, Jonah watches Lena pack. Not to leave, but to move forward. Together. You still a single dad? She asks gently. Jonah nods. Always. She takes his hand. Then let me love all of you. And for the first time since loss carved his life in two, Jonah believes that protection doesn't always mean standing between someone and danger. Sometimes it means staying when the danger is gone. Jonah doesn't remember the last time he stayed anywhere after a job ended. There was always a drive, a motel, a highway stretching out in front of him like permission to disappear again. This time he finds himself lingering in the doorway of the cabin, watching Lena move through the space with quiet familiarity. She no longer walks like she's waiting to be chased. Her shoulders aren't tight. Her steps don't hesitate. That realization unsettles him more than fear ever did. They spend the next few days doing nothing dramatic. They cook together. They clean. They talk about ordinary things that feel strangely sacred. Where Lena might want to live next. Whether Jonah ever misses the city. How silence can feel different depending on who's sharing it. At night, they sit on the porch wrapped in blankets, listening to insects hum and wind move through the trees. Jonah notices how often Lena looks at him when she thinks he isn't paying attention. Not with expectation. With recognition. One evening she finally says it. You don't see yourself the way other people do. Jonah frowns slightly. What does that mean? She turns toward him fully. You talk like you're already finished. Like your story ended when hers did. The truth lands heavier than accusation ever could. My daughter was everything, Jonah says quietly. When she died, I didn't know who I was without her. Lena nods. But you didn't stop being her father. He swallows. It feels like I did. She reaches for his hand. Not urgently, not carefully. Just honestly. Loving her shaped you. Losing her didn't erase that. Jonah has no answer for that. The thought stays with him long after the night cools and they go inside. The nightmares come less frequently now, but when they do, Lena is there. She doesn't wake him right away. She places a steady hand on his chest, grounding him before the fear fully takes hold. Jonah wakes to her presence more than her voice, and every time it happens, Something in his chest loosens instead of tightens. One morning, Jonah realizes he slept through the night without checking the locks. The realization terrifies him, then calms him. Weeks pass. The world beyond the cabin slowly reasserts itself. Phone calls, logistics, conversations about what comes next. Lena receives confirmation that the legal pressure against her has eased. Not gone entirely, but contained, controlled, manageable. She shows Jonah the message, watching his face carefully. I don't have to disappear anymore. He nods. Good. But the word good feels insufficient. That night, Jonah admits something he hasn't said out loud before. I'm scared this ends, he says. Not because you'll leave, but because I won't know how to stay. Lena studies him for a long moment. Staying doesn't mean never being afraid. It just means not running when the fear shows up. He exhales slowly. I'm not good at that. You're learning, she replies. They don't decide everything at once. There are no sweeping promises. No dramatic declarations. Instead, there are small choices made daily. Jonah helps Lena look at apartments in a nearby town. Lena encourages Jonah to consider staying somewhere longer than a few weeks. They talk about routines, about boundaries, about how to protect something without suffocating it. One afternoon, Jonah catches himself laughing, really laughing, at something Lena says. The sound surprises him. It feels unfamiliar in his chest, like a muscle he hasn't used in years. Lena notices. She smiles, soft and knowing. There you are. The words undo him. On their last night at the cabin, Jonah stands on the porch alone for a while, watching the sun dip below the trees. The quiet doesn't hurt anymore. Feels full. Lived in. Lena joins him, slipping her hand into his. You don't have to guard me now, she says gently. Jonah squeezes her fingers. I know. He means it. They leave the cabin together the next morning. No urgency. No fear. Just movement forward. As the road stretches out ahead of them, Jonah feels something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not grief, not vigilance, not loss. Hope. And for the first time since becoming a single dad with no one left to hold, Jonah understands that his capacity to protect was never the thing that broke him. It was the thing that taught him how to love again.